So the next slide on our current focus is the Silverleaf Common Property Transfer. All right. So, all right. There's a couple ways to look at this. Follow me here, please. So we have the common area transfer, and I've got a map. We're going to go over a map. And let's say that's phase one. And then we've got the resort, what we know as Holiday Inn Club Vacations. Everything on the south side of Holly Trail East, it comes out to 2869, goes down to the dam, and then on the south side is bordered by Lowesville Road. So that is the Holiday Inn property, and that's phase two. That is what is for sale, and that is what we're going to talk about at the town hall. But it's important that we distinguish between the two because they're not interrelated quite as much as we might think that they are. So they're going to sell that. But what we're talking about here with current events and we've been working on for a while is the acquisition of your common areas. And by common areas, I mean things like the golf course. I mean the property in which you're parked on out here and we walked in. The lakes, things like that. We're going to go through a detailed map of that. But that is what we're talking about when we talk about common area property transfer. So let's start with how did we get here? So we started talking a lot about this earlier in the year when Holiday Inn announced a sale. And I think most folks are under the impression that that was kind of it, and we started then, and now we're moving forward. Well, in actuality, this process of common area transfer started about 2 years ago. And that 2 years ago, Jeff Wilson, wherever he went, oh, there he is. I thought you were sitting on the floor. Reached out to the Holiday Inn folks because we had some issues. And the issues were, how much does each Holiday Inn timeshare owner pay when they come in to use your amenities? There were things like that needed to be looked at. What's the difference between repair and maintenance? The agreement that we have with Silverleaf is we will maintain in a first-class condition. We will pay insurance on all the common areas. We will pay the taxes on the common areas. All of these things that originated several years back, but we needed to relook at those. They hadn't been looked at for a while. And we lead down the path of, well, hey, maybe you guys just might be interested in some of this property. As a matter of fact, we would. So that was a true origination. So we'd been working on this for a while. And then it comes to the point where Silverleaf then says, hey, we're going to sell this place. Let's get rid of it. They're divesting, they're downsizing or right-sizing in their terms. They simply have too much property, too many vacation rentals available for the number of timeshare property owners that they have. So their business decision was, let's right-size this. So that kind of sped up the process a little bit. Like, we really need to get serious about this. We've spent a lot of time looking at it, but we need to continue to gain traction. So that's when the Silverleaf Committee was formed at the direction of the board. So we've got a committee now. We've got a lot of really smart people in a room that are working through this stuff with a lot of different experience, looking at a variety of different scenarios, and really trying to shepherd and push this thing across the finish line. That all leads to what I kind of call a culminating point. So that culminating point is we invited Silverleaf folks, it was 3 of their executives, to come out, let's sit in a room, and let's talk through this. Just mano a mano, let's figure this out. And really there was a lot involved with that meeting. It was, if I remember right, it was the better part of a full day. But really when we went into this and we crafted our agenda, there was a lot of things we wanted to get to, but some of those big ones were property identification. So we went down and we sat and we went line by line. What about this property? What about that property? We think this property. We don't think that property. We needed to clearly identify what they considered to be common property and what we consider to be common property. So we came to a very good agreement on that. Started off the meeting very well, but the next topic was developer status. If you go back and read some of the dedicatory instruments, it talks about this developer. Back in 1971, it was McKinsey and all of this, but that developer word, if you go back and look at it, is still within a lot of those dedicatory instruments. It was very important to us that if we were going to craft this deal, that we closed the loop on that. And without Holly Lake Ranch being named the developer, that loop wasn't necessarily closed. And they agreed to that. So all very positive. Next topic was transfer mechanism. How are we going to transfer this? The initial thought was it has to be a quitclaim deed. Well, as we started looking through this and got some legal opinions and a variety of things, came down and said, I don't know that that's really what we want to do. And the committee we poured into this thing, and through a lot of work through the committee members, they were able to tie down a lot of those things. And we believe that we can get it now with a title policy. So we needed to talk about that transfer mechanism. And then finally, the amenity use agreement was a big one. So what does that mean? Well, you can use their amenities, and they can use ours. But what does that look like for a new buyer? To be quite honest, they were a little bit insistent that, well, what's in place is going to remain in place. Well, I'm pretty uncomfortable with negotiating a deal for a buyer that I don't know. And I think all of you would be too, right? So we were able to get them to essentially agree that we will negotiate that. So it is negotiable. Does it mean that they're going to come in here and it's going to be better or worse for them or better or worse for us? It could be, but I don't think that it can be worse than what we have right now. Because you look at the folks that get to come in and out and what they pay, and you can view that on the financial statements of what we take in from Holiday Inn, and it's pennies it's pennies in comparison to what you all pay for your amenities. And if they're going to use your amenities, I think it should be like compensation to what you pay for your amenities. So that's kind of the mindset that we went into this with. Stepped away from that and felt pretty good, to be honest. The work of the committee shined through, and I think everybody at the end of that day kind of stepped back, took a deep breath, and said, hey, I think we're going to make this a reality. But what's the next step? And the next step is the LOI. We've talked about this mysterious LOI, this letter of intent. Adam, why are you doing a letter of intent? Why don't we just do this? Why don't we do that? Well, the intent with the letter of intent was to clearly articulate the property, the developer status, all of these little details that would nearly mimic what we will put into the contract. And it was important to us because that requires a vote from you all. So we didn't want to bring an LOI that was going to be substantially changed to a contract, because then we need to take it out and we need to revote it. So it was very, very important. We spent a lot of time on this to make sure that everything that was in the LOI would easily transfer over, with the exception of some verbiage, because it's a non-binding LOI. We clearly want it to be a binding contract, so there's certain legalese that needs to be put in there, but the meat and potatoes of it would remain the same. So that's kind of where we came from, but where are we today, I guess, is really what everybody wants to know. What's the status of the LOI? I've heard LOI has already been signed, it's already been approved. I'd love to see it if it is. That would be great. So, the fact of the matter is we are close. It is not signed. It's been back and forth a little bit. We've got the most recent revision, and we're picking seeds out of a banana here, kind of close. So it's very close. Committee and I have looked at it. We've got just a little bit more to do, and then we're going to get that over to the board. The board has not seen this latest iteration, so we hope to get that over to them very soon. Time is of the essence for us. But when that LOI gets finalized, then that kind of kicks off the real and true meat and potatoes of this thing. So there is a plan in place of how we're going to present this, and this LOI isn't some mystical creature that nobody ever gets to see. No, you're going to get to touch it, feel it, smell it, read it, all of those things. But we need to get it signed, and then we need to get it out to you. And we need to provide you with as much information as we have that we've gleaned over the past several months or a couple of years in some cases, to get that out so that you can be an educated voter on it. So that's the intent. We've looked at things like town halls. We need to have town halls. We need to have an opportunity to ask the questions. We need to be able to get in this and really work through it, and it's my hope that as we do this, that we can find the commonalities and we can find the great things and we can pour a little bit of gas on those, because this is a fantastic opportunity for the ranch. There's going to be some differences. There may be some happy the glads and LOIs, and folks are going to say, well, I don't agree with the way that that's written in the LOI. Well, to be quite honest, the LOI is the LOI. What we would be voting on is the terms of the LOI. That's not an opportunity for us to go back and try and pick and choose and all of this stuff, because at the end of the day, for the sum and consideration of $10, Holiday Inn, Club Vacations, or Silverleaf is willing to transfer over your common properties to make the ranch whole for the first time since 1971. So that's a big deal. And it's to the committee members who are going to be sitting up here at the end of this. It's to their tribute. So just a tremendous job. Not to belabor that, but multimodal information. We've talked about how are we going to get this out there for folks. Some folks read emails, some folks don't. Some folks would rather see it here or there. So, it's the printing of maps. It's posting them everywhere from in here to Whiskey's to the Pro Shop to any place else that you can see some of these things that we're going to look at here in just a minute, so that you know exactly what you're voting on. It's sending out all of that stuff. It's creating additional tabs on our website so that if you want to know something about this Silverleaf property transfer, instead of trying to sort through GM updates and all that other stuff, you can go and you can click the tab at the top, and everything that is related to that will be in one place. There's a lot of work that's went into this, but the culminating point to this, and I want to drive this home, is none of that is possible without the vote of the membership. I've heard that multiple times of it's a done deal. Is Chief Bollinger still here? I think we have. No? Yeah, all right, from the top, Jeff. No, I'm kidding. Sorry. But none of that will be possible without the vote of the membership. I've heard several times that, this is already a done deal. It's, all this. That is not the case. It will take a positive majority vote of the membership to accept this, call it a gift, to accept this. But we need to get you to that point where everybody, as you're filling those things out in the comfort of your home, feels very confident and comfortable with your decision. Our position is not to persuade, our position is to inform. So that is kind of where we're at today. There's one other thing, cost. So I mentioned the sum and consideration of $10. Three things: make a contract valid, right? Sum and consideration. So there has to be something in there. But I don't want there to be an impression that that is the only cost associated with this. So I want to be, it's not horrible, guys. But I do want to be clear about that. So there are legal fees that we'll have to have, and some of which we've already expended. There's going to be titling fees. There's going to be things like that that you would assume when you buy a house. It's not a, we'll put this under the titling fee, but it's actually $1 million. There's none of that. It's legitimate cost that you would have to purchase any property. So I do want to be clear about that. The transfer is $10, but there are other fees associated, and we hope to be able to very, very clearly provide all those to you as we start to do this kind of rollout of all this information. So I know this was important. I really wanted to talk about this because this is phase one, not related to phase two, the sale of the property that is to be happening on March 4th via auction. That is the Holiday Inn Resort. So they're related because they're owned by the same person, but what we're talking about with the acquisition of your property is not necessarily directly related to the sale of the property over there. So I just want to be very clear about that moving forward. So I think that is it for now. We could talk about this a lot, but that's not the focus of this. But I wanted to give you enough information to know that it is getting very, very close. And when that closeness hits, then we're going to get full deep into it, just like we are later on with the sale of the property. Okay. With that wraps up our current focus. I'd like to briefly get into our 3-month future focus. We'll do the questions and answers. and then we can adjourn for a little bit and get into the town hall. So next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. If you can come to the microphone, sir. And we ask y'all to come to the microphone because we're video recording this, and if you don't talk into a microphone, the folks online can't hear you.
This had nothing to do with this.
Sir? I want to hear what this lady has to say because he said we'll talk about it later.
Well, and we will. We're going to get to general property owner questions.
Okay.
Coming up. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, sorry, I jumped the gun there. So, next slide, please. So when we talk about what are, it's thinking it's going to come. So when we talk about what are the common areas, the map that's going to popped up, all the areas in yellow, and we're going to blow this up by quadrant here in just a minute. I know it's very, very difficult to see, but I'm going to try and talk you through what's in some of those quadrants, just so you have an idea. I've talked to a lot of folks, and they say, what do you mean we don't own the common areas? Yes, that is a fact. We don't own the common areas. So this is kind of what we're talking about. Please notice Holiday Inn and the little inset for it. That is not included in this. That is phase 2, what we're going to talk about after this. So if we can go to the next slide, please. All right, so we're up in section 2, kind of up in the northwest corner here. So common areas as considered in this would be Cattail Lake, Whispering Winds, Shadow Lake, Holly Lake, all of the area over here. There is a little area down here that the county says is owned by somebody else, Bob Mead. I know. That's what it says on the county. I believe that that's incorrect. I believe that we can easily prove that. But I do want to make that distinction because if you go home tonight and look on WoodCAD, it'll look like somebody else owns that, and you're going to say, Adam lied to me because Silverleaf can't transfer property that isn't owned by them. We recognize and acknowledge that. And then down on the south side of the dam over here, there's another distinction down there. So it's actually marked in reserve area, and it's parcel number 16175. And we'll talk about that again in a minute because 16175 is associated with 4 different properties. It's that property. It's the condos, it's hole 12 and a couple other there on the golf course, and then it's on the south side that's Holiday Inn Vacation admin. Why are they all the same? We're trying to work through that as well. So you will see that. It looks like it's owned by somebody else, parcel number 16175, but we'll get some clarity on that. So this is kind of where we're at here. This slide, please. If we look at the east side, so we'll start at the top here in section 8. So the 2 parks that are kind of up there are included. We call them parks. They're really not kind of park-like that you think of. Not yet. But the park's up here. We've got on the north side of the East Fork, kind of that swampland up in there, all of Lake Greenbrier. And it's hard to see, but you'll notice there are some individual lots. So they decided to transfer all of their owned individual lots within this, which is good as well. It's potential for increased revenue for the ranch, but it kind of breaks the tie, if you will. So anything that they owned here within what we kind of consider Holly Lake Ranch would either be transferred over or it's owned by you all. So that kind of closes the loop there again. We've got the RV park, the area just south of the RV park, some of these lots again, all of the golf course. Point Park is included. There's an area kind of catty corner to Point Park if you're standing out on the point. There's an area down there that's a really nice area. It's classified as a park as well, but it's a little bit overgrown now. Includes it over here, the dam, on the south side of the dam, the boat ramp, all of that, and then our maintenance shop where it sits out on FM 2869. All right, next slide, please. Down south, it includes the air park, and it also notice, it's hard to see, but there's an area above the air park that is owned. It's technically outside of the ranch property, but it's owned by Silverleaf. and they've agreed to transfer that as well. And then we have the general common recreational area down to Section 3, and some Section 3 lots as well. Next slide. And then Section 6, it's a little easier to see on this, but there's 3 individual lots that they currently own that will go with this transfer as well. So when we refer to the common area transfer, that's really and truly what we were talking about.